Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we look at a case that's as much about what happened as it is about who gets to ask questions. The death of Tamla Horsford.
It's a really challenging story. You've gathered some comprehensive sources here.
Yeah, and as we start to unpack them, it's quite something. It starts with what sounds like a pretty normal, even fun night.
Right, an adult sleepover.
Exactly, but it ends so tragically. A chilling discovery and just a storm of really unsettling questions that honestly still haven't gone away.
Mhm.
So we're going to walk through the details around Tamla Horsford's death. She was 40, a mother of 5 kids. Everyone described her as, vibrant, sociable,
Full of life, yeah.
attending the sleepover with friends. And then by the next morning, she's found dead in the backyard, face down, multiple injuries. It's just, it's shocking to even think about.
And what jumps out right away from the material is how quickly the official ruling came down.
Right. Accidental fall from a balcony. Case closed almost.
Almost immediately. But then you look at the complexity of her injuries, which we'll get into, and just the really weird circumstances around how she was found. It didn't take long for other voices to start questioning that official story, loudly.
Especially her family's attorney. He's been very, very vocal from the start, hasn't he? Pointing out things in your sources that just don't seem to add up.
Exactly. Deeply questioning that narrative.
So as we explore the material you've brought, what are we really asking? Was this a terrible, tragic accident, a fall caused by impairment? Or does looking closer at the evidence, the timeline, the witness accounts, does that suggest something darker?
Something more complex, yeah.
And that's really where the internet grabbed hold of this case.
Oh, absolutely. It just exploded. You saw this huge wave of public skepticism, people demanding answers, doing their own digging online.
Right. The citizen detectives.
And that online pressure is still there today, really, because those core questions just wouldn't fade.
Okay, so let's set the scene properly. Using the reports you've gathered, we're talking about November 3rd, 2018.
Right. Saturday night.
It was pitched as this kind of casual adult slumber party, specifically for a group called the Football Moms.
Yeah. Sounds pretty innocuous.
Totally. It was at a friend's house in Cumming, Georgia. That's in Forsyth County. Tamla Horsford, who we mentioned, was known for being really outgoing. She got there around 10 p.m., supposedly just looking forward to a relaxed night with friends.
And the sources emphasized that these weren't strangers. They were described as long-standing friends.
Okay.
Which you'd think would be a comfortable, safe environment. The reports from that night paint a picture of people just hanging out, drinking, watching football, playing Cards Against Humanity, I think it was.
Right. Pretty standard stuff for a get-together like that. Meant to be laid back.
Exactly. Just a social gathering.
But here's a detail from your materials that, it becomes really significant later on, especially when we talk about how the community reacted and these perceptions of bias. Tamla Horsford was the only Black woman there out of 12 guests.
That's correct. The only one.
And that fact, maybe seemingly small at first, it ends up casting this long shadow for a lot of people looking at the case, doesn't it? It's something highlighted again and again in your sources.
It really is. It adds a layer of context that many people felt couldn't be ignored.
So the night goes on. According to witness statements in your research, Tamla was last seen alive sometime between 1:30 and 2 a.m.
A relatively tight window.
Yeah. She apparently went out onto the back porch or deck area to smoke a cigarette.
That's the story, yes.
And that's it. That's the last time anyone officially confirms seeing her. The moment before she essentially disappears until the discovery hours later.
And it's such a critical point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that's where the narrative starts to fray. That single unconfirmed action, going out to smoke alone, becomes the explanation, but it also marks the beginning of the mystery.
Such a small window of time, like you said, but it leaves this huge, dark gap in understanding what happened next.
Precisely. What occurred between, say, 2 a.m. and when she was found. That's the void.
And that void becomes terrifyingly real with the discovery the next morning. Your sources describe it really vividly. Around 7:30 a.m. on Sunday, November 4th.
Yes. The homeowner's aunt finds Tamla's body.
Finds her lying face down, motionless, underneath the porch or deck area, just horrific scene to stumble upon.
Unimaginable. And that moment, that discovery, it sets off this chain reaction of events that, frankly, have been picked apart from every angle ever since. By the family, by investigators, by countless people online.
Right. And then there's the 911 call, which, based on your sources, is, well, it's more than a little controversial.
That's putting it mildly. It adds layers of deep concern for many observers. The call was placed by Jose Barrera. He was the homeowner's boyfriend present at the party.
Great.
But the call wasn't made until 8:59 a.m.
Wait, 8:59, but she was found around 7:30.
Exactly. That's a delay of over an hour and a half between finding the body and calling 911.
An hour and a half? What were they doing?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's never been satisfactorily answered for many people, including the family. What happened in that time?
Okay, that alone raises huge red flags.
Huge. And then there's the tone of the call itself. Your sources describe Barrera's tone as subdued.
Subdued, like calm.
Almost unnervingly so, according to some interpretations. He simply told the dispatcher that Tamla might have fallen.
Might have fallen, not there's a body or someone's hurt or send help immediately.
No, just might have fallen. That lack of apparent urgency, combined with that significant time lag, it immediately made people suspicious. It fueled this narrative that something wasn't right from the very beginning. Why the delay? Why the calm?
And the lack of clarity about what exactly was said during that call, beyond that one phrase, and what happened during that hour and a half gap.
It became a major point of contention. It sowed distrust almost instantly among people following the case.
Okay, so you have this delayed call, this odd phrasing. But despite all that, the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office moved fast.
Startlingly fast, according to the reports, following what was described as a brief investigation.
Brief? For a potential unattended death.
That's the term used. They quickly ruled Tamla Horsford's death an accident.
Just like that.
Their conclusion was firm. She fell from the second-story balcony about 14 feet because she had a high blood alcohol level.
Wow. That seems incredibly swift, especially given the circumstance that we just talked about, the delay, the call.
It did strike many observers as remarkably quick.
Okay, so what was the official basis for that conclusion? The autopsy.
Yes, your sources include the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the GBI, their autopsy report, that provided the official medical backing.
And what did it say?
It confirmed a blood alcohol level of 0.238.
Which we noted is nearly 3 times the legal driving limit.
Right. At that level, someone would likely have severe disorientation, significantly impaired motor skills, maybe even memory blackouts. It makes coordinated movement or protecting yourself in a fall very difficult.
Okay, what else?
They also found traces of Xanax in her system. That's alprazolam, a sedative, and THC, the active component in marijuana.
So a mix of substances.
Yes. And the report stated she had multiple blunt force injuries, head, neck, torso.
Blunt force injuries.
Correct. But crucially, the GBI ruled these injuries as consistent with a fall from that height, that 14-foot balcony.
Consistent with a fall.
That was the official finding. The combination of the high BAC, the other substances, they argued, explained why she might have fallen and couldn't prevent or lessen the injuries.
Okay. So the GBI report backs up the sheriff's quick conclusion.
It does. And based on that, the case was officially closed in February 2019.
Only a few months later.
Yes. The sheriff's office reiterated their position. No evidence of foul play. Done deal. Presented as a tragic, but ultimately straightforward accident.
But it wasn't the end of the story. Not by a long shot.
Not at all. As your sources document very clearly, there was immediate and powerful pushback.
From her family and their attorney, Raul Fernandez.
They came out swiftly, publicly, expressing profound doubt. They refused to accept that official narrative as the whole truth.
So why? Why were they so immediately skeptical? What specifically didn't add up for them?
Well, Fernandez, based on consultations with independent forensic experts cited in your sources, argued very strongly that the pattern of injuries wasn't fully consistent with just a simple fall.
Okay, like what?
He pointed to several things that raised major flags. A laceration to her heart.
A cut on her heart from a fall.
It's exceptionally rare in a simple fall from that height, according to the experts he consulted. It often suggests a more direct, forceful impact, maybe even something penetrating. It's not typical of just landing after falling.
Wow. Okay, what else?
A fractured second vertebra, that's the axis, high up in the neck.
Okay.
Breaking that typically requires significant force or extreme movement of the head and neck, like in a car crash or violent assault. Again, less consistent with a tumble off a balcony, according to their experts.
Mm.
And then there are these parallel scratches found on her arm.
Parallel scratches, like defensive wounds.
That's what some interpretations suggested. Your sources describe them as clean, linear marks. Not the kind of messy, scattered scrapes you might expect from dragging against rough concrete or wood during an uncontrolled fall. They raise the possibility of a struggle, of grappling.
So, heart laceration, high neck fracture, parallel scratches. Those are pretty specific and troubling points.
Absolutely. And beyond the injuries, the family pointed to what they felt were deeply conflicting statements from the other partygoers.
Inconsistencies in their stories.
Yes, about Tamla's movements, about what happened immediately after the discovery. Things that they felt were never properly investigated or reconciled by the sheriff's office.
And they were worried about the scene itself.
Big concerns about potential mishandling or even compromise of evidence, especially given that hour-and-a-half delay before 911 was called. What happened at the scene during that time? Was anything moved?
Yeah.
Cleaned?
Right. Critical window.
And another major sticking point highlighted in your research, the autopsy itself. Specifically, the apparent lack of photographs taken during the initial GBI examination.
No photos. Isn't that standard procedure, especially in a death like this?
Highly unusual, yes.
Hmm.
Especially for a death with potentially suspicious circumstances. It's a key part of documenting evidence. The lack of photos became another element fueling the family's distrust.
So, armed with all these doubts, the injuries, the witness statements, the scene concerns, the autopsy issues, the family didn't just complain, they acted.
They did. They pushed very hard, very publicly for a second. Private autopsy. An independent look at the medical evidence.
To get an unbiased assessment.
Exactly. And according to your reports, a private autopsy did find things the first one apparently missed or didn't highlight.
Like what?
Additional abrasions, other internal injuries, findings that, for the family and their legal team, only deepened their skepticism about the accidental fall ruling.
So, the second autopsy essentially contradicted the first one, or added complexity.
It certainly added complexity and seemed to contradict the simplicity of the fall narrative. It gave their arguments more weight, made it harder for them to accept the official story, and strengthened their case that the initial investigation was just insufficient.
That discrepancy between the two autopsies seems absolutely key.
It's one of the crucial threads that kept this case alive in the public consciousness. It wasn't just speculation anymore. It was a tangible, documented challenge to the official conclusion. It gave the family concrete grounds to keep fighting.
And that fight spilled right into the public square, didn't it? It gathered incredible momentum.
Huge momentum. The hashtag Justice for Tamla Horsford just took off on social media.
Yeah.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It was everywhere.
Amplifying the family's pleas, getting the story out there.
And it wasn't just grassroots. Celebrities got involved. People like Kim Kardashian, 50 Cent. They started posting about it, sharing the hashtag.
That brings a whole different level of attention, doesn't it?
Massive. Suddenly, this case from Forsyth County, Georgia, was getting global attention. It put an enormous spotlight on the questions surrounding Tamla's death. It made it impossible to ignore.
And that public outcry, that intense pressure, it actually worked.
It did, remarkably. Your sources show it directly led to official action.
Mm.
The GBI, facing national scrutiny and relentless online advocacy,
Yeah.
they agreed to reopen the case in June 2020.
Wow. So the public pressure actually forced them to take another look.
It demonstrates the real power of collective public demand, doesn't it? When it reaches that critical mass, amplified by media and influential voices, it can influence official bodies, even make them revisit closed cases.
But for those hoping for a different outcome or reversal, it didn't happen, did it?
No, it was ultimately a profound disappointment for the family and their supporters. In July 2021, after the GBI finished their second look, which even involved an FBI review.
The FBI got involved too.
Yes, which shows how seriously it was being taken at that point. But even after that review, the GBI concluded their investigation again. Same conclusion. They reiterated their original stance, decided not to pursue criminal charges, stated once again that the evidence did not support foul play or murder.
So despite reopening it, despite the FBI review, they stuck to the original finding.
They did. The case officially remains closed, leaving the family and a huge number of people following the story deeply unsatisfied.
That must have been devastating for the family.
Unimaginably so. It leaves all those core questions just hanging there, unanswered by the official record, even after a reinvestigation. It's a stark reminder of how hard it can be to overturn an official conclusion, no matter how much public doubt swirls around it.
Okay, so the official case is closed, but the unofficial investigation, that continued online, right? This is where your research on Reddit, Twitter, etc. becomes really fascinating.
Absolutely, because even with that final official word, the questions didn't stop. They just shifted, maybe intensified in the online sphere.
These platforms became like hubs for citizen investigation.
Exactly, hotbeds of it. People were relentless. They weren't just accepting the official reports at face value.
What were they doing specifically?
Meticulously combing through every available document, highlighting inconsistencies they found in police reports, witness statements, comparing them side by side.
Creating timeline.
Detailed, crowdsourced timelines, yeah. Tried to piece together every minute of that night from publicly available info and the 911 call audio you provided. That got intense scrutiny.
How so?
People were listening to it over and over,
Yeah.
dissecting every word Barrera said, his tone, the pauses, the silences, looking for anything that felt off, any subtle clue officials might have missed or dismissed. Was there hesitation?
Evasion.
Wow. Almost forensic listening.
It really was. Viral threads popped up on Reddit and Twitter questioning everything. The police response time, the handling of the scene, the speed of the initial ruling, the medical findings. One Reddit thread, for example, compiled dozens of witness accounts, highlighting contradictions about Tamla's mood, her interactions when people last saw her, what people did after she was found, trying to find cracks in the official story.
Precisely. Looking for discrepancies that suggested maybe the partygoers' accounts weren't entirely consistent or truthful.
And this wasn't just limited to forums like Reddit, right? YouTube got involved too.
Big time. Popular true crime and commentary channels, you mentioned Kendall Ray, Georgia Marie, Stephanie Harlow. They produce these really in-depth videos.
Yeah, I've seen some of those. They reach huge audiences.
Exactly. They synthesized all the online findings, laid out the timeline, highlighted the disputed injuries, discussed the family's concerns, posed those lingering questions. They brought Tamla's story to millions more people, fueling even more discussion and demands for justice.
And the petition.
That Change.org petition reopened the case of Tamla Horsford, getting over 700,000 signatures.
700,000. That's staggering.
It really is. It's such clear, undeniable proof of the massive public interest and the widespread feeling that something wasn't right here, that more needed to be done. It wasn't just a fringe concern. It was a mainstream public demand for transparency.
So when we've tried to understand why this case generated such intense reaction, such deep-seated doubt, what does it really boil down to? Your research suggests it goes beyond just the facts of the night itself.
It really does. For many people, this case tapped into much larger, deeply rooted concerns about race and justice in America.
Okay, let's explore that carefully. How did race become such a central element in the discussion?
Well, as we noted, Tamla was the only Black person at that party. And the incident happened in Forsyth County, Georgia.
And Forsyth County has a history.
It does. A very specific and often painful history regarding race relations. Your research points this out clearly. Forsyth County was known for decades, starting after violent racial expulsions back in 1912, as being effectively an all-white county.
Wow, 1912.
Yes, and that legacy led to significant civil rights demonstrations there, even as recently as the 1980s, protesting its exclusionary nature. So for many advocates and online commentators, when a Black woman dies under suspicious circumstances at an all-white gathering in that specific county,
Red flags go up immediately.
exactly, there was an immediate suspicion, a belief among many, that her case might not have been taken as seriously, investigated as thoroughly, or treated with the same urgency as it might have been if the victim or the location had been different.
The fear of implicit or even explicit bias affecting the investigation from the start.
Precisely. That context, that history, hung heavy over the case for many observers.
And then there was that specific accusation about a conflict of interest, which seemed to pour gasoline on the fire.
Yes, that was a major development highlighted in your sources. One of the party guests, remember Jose Barrera, the one who made the 911 call?
Yeah, the homeowner's boyfriend.
Well, it came out that he worked for the local court system. He was a Forsyth County court officer, or had been, and he was later fired
Fired. Why?
for allegedly accessing confidential files related to Tamla Horsford's death investigation. Information he shouldn't have been looking at.
Whoa. Okay, that looks really bad.
It looked terrible. It immediately fueled intense suspicion. Was there an inside effort to manage the narrative, to suppress information, to protect people involved? It made the cover-up theory seem much more plausible to many people.
You can see why a guest at the party who works in the court system is accessing case files.
Exactly. It connects the dots for those who are already suspicious. You combine that alleged conflict of interest with the delayed 911 call, the disputed injuries, the quick ruling.
It paints a picture.
It strongly contributed to that pervasive theory you see online, that maybe there's an altercation, a fight, something happened involving Tamla and another guest, leading to her death, and that the others, possibly with help or at least looking the other way from someone connected to the system, conspired to make it look like an accident.
A deeply troubling alternative narrative.
Very. Suggesting a deliberate effort to hide the truth.
And then the case got another huge surge of attention in 2020. Why then?
The timing was crucial. Your sources confirm it blew up again right in the middle of the massive Black Lives Matter protests following George Floyd's murder.
Ah, okay. The national conversation about racial justice was at a peak.
Exactly. And Tamla Horsford's story resonated powerfully within that context. For many people, her case became a symbol, a heartbreaking example of why there's this perception that the deaths of Black women often don't receive the same level of media attention, the same investigative rigor, the same public outcry as other cases.
It felt like part of a larger systemic pattern to people.
Yes, it reinforced that feeling of systemic bias, that sense of unequal justice. So the petitions were reignited. The calls for a truly unbiased reinvestigation grew louder again, even though the GBI had officially reclosed it. Her case became emblematic of those broader frustrations.
So if we try to connect Tamla's story to that bigger picture based on everything in your sources,
Yeah.
it really does feel like it highlights this painful pattern, doesn't it? This question of why deaths of Black women sometimes seem to fall into an urgency gap.
It certainly raises that question starkly. And your sources suggest that this isn't just an abstract concern. It's rooted in historical context and contemporary observation.
The history of Forsyth County, like you said.
Right, that specific history, combined with the specific facts of Tamla's case, the inconsistencies, the unanswered questions, it fuels that deep-seated suspicion of official narratives when justice for marginalized communities feels lacking. It's not just about Forsyth County. It touches on a wider distrust in institutions when they appear, to some, to fail in providing transparent, equitable investigations for everyone, regardless of race.
This perceived urgency gap in media focus and maybe even official response.
It's a recurring theme in discussions around cases like Tamla's, as your research shows. Why does one case get wall-to-wall coverage and another, equally tragic, struggle for attention?
And that leads us right back to the core thread of truth here, doesn't it? It's not just about what happened physically that night. It's about whether we can trust the official story.
Exactly. Can that narrative, however firmly stated by authorities, be fully accepted when there's compelling counter-evidence, or at least compelling questions, raised by credible sources like the family's attorney and their independent experts?
The public isn't just asking what happened. They're asking who gets to decide the truth, and should we believe that decision?
That's precisely the heart of the sustained doubt. It's a credibility gap. When key facts are disputed, when independent findings challenge the official ones, it erodes public confidence. And the inability to reconcile those conflicting narratives just leaves this profound, lingering unease.
And the internet played such a huge role here. It's a really powerful example of how online movements can force attention onto cases, demand justice, maybe even get cases reopened.
Undeniably. Social media was crucial. It provided a space where the doubts and questions couldn't just be swept under the rug or dismissed easily by officials. It kept the pressure on.
But there's a flip side to that, isn't there? Your sources touch on this too.
There is. It raises really important questions about where passionate public advocacy ends and potentially online trial by speculation begins.
Right. The line can get blurry.
It can. While that collective energy is vital for awareness and pushing for action, sometimes unverified theories, even if people mean well, can muddy the waters. They might spread misinformation or complicate actual investigative work. It's a powerful tool, the internet hive mind, but it needs critical thinking, both from creators and consumers of that information.
Finding that balance is tricky. So as we wrap up our look at your research, why does this specific case still resonate so strongly with so many people years later, even after it's officially closed? Twice.
I think there are a few core reasons really illuminated by the materials you've shared.
Yeah.
First, as we talked about, the setting is just so relatable.
The adult sleepover.
Yeah, it sounds normal, almost mundane, something listeners might have done or their friends have done. That familiarity makes the tragic outcome feel even more shocking, more unsettling. It brings a sense of vulnerability into everyday life. That could have happened to someone I know.
That makes sense. It feels close to home.
Second, the social justice dimension is huge. The racial undertones, the context of Forsyth County, the perception of a potentially biased investigation. It taps right into those broader societal frustrations about fairness, about equal justice. Tamla's story becomes a lens through which people examine those bigger systemic issues.
And the third reason.
I think most profoundly, it's the lack of closure.
Yeah.
At its core, this is a heartbreaking story about a mother of 5 who died, and the circumstances are still deeply disputed, highly suspicious to many. That leaves her family, her children, her friends in this terrible limbo, a void where clear, definitive answers should be.
The why and the how are still contested.
Exactly. Those questions persist not just online, but crucially in the hearts of the people who loved her. They're still fighting for what they see as the real truth, a full explanation. And that ongoing struggle, that human element of seeking answers for Tamla, keeps the public engaged and invested because for her family, this is anything but closed.
It really highlights the immense challenge of trying to reopen a closed case, doesn't it? Especially when officials have stood firm even after a review.
It truly does. It's not easy. Your sources show it often takes this extraordinary combination of factors.
Like what?
Sustained, massive public pressure, sometimes high-profile celebrity voices chipping in, relentless, unwavering advocacy from the family and their legal team who just won't give up. And often, the tireless digging of online communities refusing to let it go. You need all that just to get a second look sometimes.
And even then, as we saw here, it doesn't guarantee a different outcome.
No. And the conflicting threads remain. The high BAC versus the questionable injuries. The official story versus the family's experts. A closed case file versus an open public wound. All these things ensure that the questions about Tamla Horsford's death, they just continue to echo, hauntingly.
Will the truth about Tamla ever be officially recognized or only whispered online? It's a question that hangs heavy in the air. Thank you for joining us on Threads of Truth. Next time on Threads of Truth, we take you back to summer camp in 1977, where 3 Girl Scouts were murdered in the woods, and the prime suspect vanished into legend, the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders.